L. And this week it's life insurance and legacy. So for those that don't know, September is Life Insurance Awareness Month. So we're going to take some time today. And John, I just thought about this. We've been doing this a year now, every week for a year, a little more than a year, because we started last year.
Wow.
In Life Insurance Awareness Month in September of last year. So we just celebrated a year anniversary doing these live streams.
That's funny. Hey, one of the main keys to success is consistency. So the fact that you thought of this, but also that we've kept it up for a year, congratulations. Great, I believe a great accomplishment, but many more to come. So
I'm looking forward to it. So hey, listen, if you want to find out the keys to building wealth, you definitely want to stay tuned. All right. Yeah. So get a pen, get a pad, share this, tell a friend, and we'll be getting started in just a moment.
All right.
Good evening once again. I am Majida Bay, your financial conductor, and I'm joined by my mentor, coach, friend, Mr. John Epting Jr., senior financial broker, life and financial strategist, 20 plus years of experience in the financial services industry, but more importantly, he's a husband and a father, and a man of faith, and somebody I've just had the privilege to get to know. And gosh, man, John, it's just a blessing, right? We're gonna get into the subject, of course, but I want to give you, as my community says, I want to give you your flowers, right? Now, and I just been thinking about it, just where I found myself now in life. I'm just so grateful. I'm so blessed to have had the opportunity to meet you so many years ago. And who knew, it was like a seed planted, back then, that is now finally starting to blossom for me anyway. And I'm just thrilled that, I invested in a relationship, and I hung around and, kind of held onto your coattail long enough to get to this point to where it's manifesting in other areas of my life. So I just want to say thank you. I appreciate you. I love you.
Thank you. And love you too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. He appreciates the relationship we have with you, starting with you, and then of course your family. So yes,
likewise.
It started off a little weird at first, but it was really just a referral. And you did stick around. And I think the flowers to me in this relationship is how you've said that the impacts my wife and I have made in your life are also affecting in a good way the other areas of your life, not just finances, not just your legacy. It's helping in other ways. So that's really cool for us. And
right.
It's been a fun journey. There's I've had the privilege of helping and impacting quite a few people now, and it even feels weird saying that because I know who I am. So it's like, really, have I? But just today alone, I had 2 different phone calls from 2 different people calling and just thanking me. Some were kind of concerned. They knew I had contracted COVID. And, one of them had text me while she was in Aruba, and she's texting me with her husband. And I told her, hey, yeah, I'm doing okay. Don't worry about me. I just contracted COVID, so I'm in quarantine right now, and blah, blah, blah. And she finally got a hold of me today because she's now back, and she's like, oh my gosh, I was freaking out. I was like, I don't live my life in fear. If anybody knows me, I don't live my life in fear. As far as I'm concerned, next month I'll be 50 years old, and I've survived quite a bit. Not to get too deep into that, but I've survived quite a bit and gone through quite a bit. And I see all of this stuff as kind of a privilege now. It's not that I have to do anything. Thank God I'm not in a place where I have to do anything. But I get to do things. And I'm still in my office tonight. I get to do this with you. I get to have a relationship with you. So when you think of it that way, it gives your life a different perspective when you see everything as a privilege. Even I'm dealing with some tough stuff not in my own personal life, but people who in my life who are going through tough stuff. It feels like I'm going through it with them, and so I have I guess you would say a son who I'm walking through some stuff with, and it's you know it's hard to see him like this, and but I get to be there for him. I get to use the wisdom I've gathered through going through similar things and help him overcome them, and he'll come out better than me. So.
That's good for you. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And I probably really said all of that to tie into the legacy part. Sometimes when we think of legacy, we're always thinking of property and businesses and money and wealth, which is a huge part. You definitely should be leaving that too, right? But there's also a legacy of character. And the older I'm getting, the more I value that one. It's you can make hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars. But finding people in your circle, in your sphere of influence with the right character, oh my gosh, it's becoming rare, and that's not fun.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, really, and it's really painful because you don't know who you can trust. You don't know. It's just kind of where it is, but I'm even grateful that I even have to figure that out. So.
And I'm glad you said that, John, because I've been listening to some stuff by Eric Thomas. For those that don't know him, like he said, count it all joy, right? The adversity, the stress, the anxiety, like it's how you see. And I just
says that a lot.
Yeah. But it's crazy because, like what you were saying, as you were speaking about some of the things that you're experiencing or helping people through, like it's your perspective on those things that decides how you go through it, right? Like it's you have a positive mental attitude about it. And so I love how you tied that into what we're talking about today in terms of legacy, because that's so true. Like the legacy of your character, the legacy about your attitude, right? We say we can only control two things, your attitude and your activity. And so control what you can control, right? And then the rest of it, let it go and let God, right? Like the rest of it, count it all joy. See the benefit in the adversity.
Yeah, that was so good.
And
your time.
Yeah, like that was I can make some connections sometimes, right? I can tie it together. But I just love that. So let's hop right into this topic on life insurance and legacy. And like I said, this is Life Insurance Awareness Month. So for those that are tuning in, if you didn't know, for Life Insurance Awareness Month, we wanted to talk about legacy because that's also part of wealth. And I love that, this topic is something that can be very practical. Mm-hmm. And so when we're talking about building wealth, can you explain just really quick what are some of the benefits and features of life insurance that actually allow you to build wealth?
Oh, wow. Okay, great. Whether it be here present or in the future, there's many different things within life insurance to help create a generational legacy. And of course, the amount you leave plays a big part in that as well. But the first thing life insurance does, I think what we need to do really is narrow down what is insurance. And first of all, people just need to understand that insurance is a transference of risk. That's why you have it. You don't want to take the risk, whether it be health insurance, car insurance, whatever type of insurance, malpractice insurance, right? So in our field, we have to have those types of insurance on us, as well as doctors have something similar to that. And then, many different things. I owned a detailing company, right? So I was bonded and insured in case, one of my guys screw up somebody's car. And what it is, I'm transferring that risk. So the reason I have car insurance is I don't want to leave out of my office tonight and hit somebody in their Aston Martin, right? I don't drive an Aston Martin yet, right? But that's the one I would want out of the gate right now would be almost $300,000. Right? I wouldn't want to take that risk. So what did I do? I transferred the risk. Okay, same thing with my life insurance. What I'm doing is my life insurance is protecting what I'm trying to build. I'm the goose that lays the golden eggs in my family. So if you're a breadwinner, and you know what? Let me take that last line back. Even if you're not a breadwinner, even if you're not the breadwinner, so to speak, right? If your income, right, and your income and your presence has value, you should have life insurance. For example, there was a time when my wife was an at-home mom. This is when our girls were really, really little, like when Jessie came out, and then, right behind her was Tootie. They were 18 months apart. And I realized probably a year into that, Tootie wasn't even here yet, but she was pregnant with Tootie. And I realized my wife had more value when she was an at-home mom than when she was going to the bank every day and working and bringing home an actual income. Right? Because I thought about who all, in order for me to continue to run my business and build what we built now, how many people would I have to hire just to do what she was doing?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there's a huge misconception that, it has to be a certain, does that person have value?
Yeah.
Simple. That's the simple one. Right? And then I'm valuable to my family. I'm the goose that lays the golden eggs. Right? Most of us insure the eggs. We don't insure the goose. Or let me say it differently. We insure the eggs, but we don't insure the goose properly. Right? You might have a little life insurance on your job or something like that. But just think to yourself, if something happened to you today, boom, stop. The lights go out. You ain't coming home no more. The amount that you're leaving them, right, outside of any government assistance or anything like that, how long would they survive? And on an average, the average family has about $50,000 in life insurance, and the average employee makes more than $50,000, right, between $30,000 and $55,000. So you basically left them a year, right? And we haven't even talked about debts. We haven't even talked about other things that happen. And then we didn't talk about mismanagement.
Mm-hmm.
Some people could be left a decent amount of money and they mismanage it. Unfortunately, I've had clients' children who did that. Like the parent left them decent. They were in a decent place, especially at very young ages. And you look up now and they don't have any of that. Like, and actually, unfortunately, not even really any assets to show for it. So sometimes we just think about leaving the money, believe it or not, leaving we
instructions,
talked about the character, but also the instructions. Like you did a beautiful thing this year. Was that this year you went and saw an attorney?
That was this year,
right? Yep. You made sure that you put an estate plan in place, and right, so the trust is in place. But there's some details when you put those things in place. There's some, hey, this is what has to happen, right? There's no negotiating this. Right. And which is a beautiful thing. It just shares your maturity in making sure your family's okay. There's so many myths out there, too. That's the scary part. And maybe I need to tell people what is a myth. So let me explain what a myth is. A myth is a lie that's been told long enough, often enough, loud enough, with enough passion. So that's really all a myth is. People, if you tell a lie long enough, often enough, loud enough, with enough passion, people will accept it as truth. So there's some myths when it comes to military guys or ex-military guys. Many people believe. Oh my goodness, you got a house full of little girls, right? Many people believe that it's certain of our benefits that just keep going. That's totally not true. And I'm one of the guys that help with the military space system. Or there's these myths that the government's gonna get. You're just gonna get this money. Or there's so many myths out there, and I've seen people have some really tough times when the truth comes out. So that's why I like educating about it. That's why I like helping you actually understand. Like today alone, I've helped 3 families, but 7 different policies today.
Wow, good stuff.
Yeah, it's a fun. I'm sorry, let's take that back. 6. We just decided not to go with one. I forgot, but 6 different policies, 3 different families. And then I got another meeting with a young lady on the West Coast after this meeting. So I just like educating this stuff. I remember when I didn't understand it. I remember when I used to think insurance was, you're like, oh my God, you never get it. Right? It was a myth that was told to me. Actually, it dates back so far, I don't even remember when it started. It just
Right.
It was kind of just this thing. And then when I started able to put the, kind of connect the dots, then I saw how valuable it was. It was more than just a death benefit then.
Yeah.
And now I show people how to use different types of life insurance to build wealth inside of it and grow a nest egg for themselves, and maybe even use that money for other things, like, being your own bank and, flipping real estate and, whatever other, everybody has a different goal, dream, what they want to do. All right. And it's really my job as a financial strategist to help them figure out a strategy and what things will help in that strategy.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All great points. And I appreciate you sharing that. So let's go into, all right, because a lot of times people want to do things, but the other part of it is whether or not you're in position, whether you're prepared to do those things, right? So you want to leave a legacy, you want to build generational wealth, but with respect to life insurance, can you share with our audience, John, how you can ensure that you qualify to actually do that and use life insurance as a wealth building tool?
Yeah. Well,
yes.
As you know, with our firm, we do an analysis for people to help them figure out where they actually are. If you're trying to get somewhere, one of the most important things is actually figuring out where you are first. My GPS always says I'm here, and then where do I go? So that's important. Now, the reason I say that too, some people are like, of course your GPS says that. It doesn't always, believe it or not. Sometimes I don't know what these satellites do, but sometimes it's off or something. So it'll ask me where I am, and I'm like, like my location, right? Or so. So I remember I did a road trip and I had to do that. I was like, what do you mean? I thought the GPS was automatically figured out where I am. But that's important. I think where you are is important. And then where you want to go is important. So where you want to go is maybe the end goal, if you will, or maybe even a passing point. But you got to figure those things out. And then we got to figure out if it's affordable and suitable. Affordable and suitable. So unfortunately, in my career and in my, I guess because of my stature and my status in the industry, I see so much stuff that kind of hurts my feelings sometimes. I see sometimes, and I'm not trying to bash anybody in my industry, but I see them doing things that's kind of unethical, right? If a person already has a policy, the policy is a good policy, right? I've seen people actually, other agents tell people to cancel policies that's really still good. It's nothing wrong with that policy. And I could tell they didn't do the math. They didn't do the math because now the person, if that person got that policy, quick story. I did a case today. So one of the people in the family bought a policy back in 2013. It was with a different company. It's a company I do, but I don't see it as the best of the best, right? But he bought it back in 2013, right? Fast forward we're in 2021. So what does that tell you? The person's already older, which means the cost is going to be a little bit higher, right? Now, the average person, if you don't know how to do this, they would just tell them, oh, just get rid of that one and start this one and blah, blah, blah. But I analyzed the policy. There's nothing wrong with it, right? In order for me, in order for me to get him, now, could we have done it better? Yeah. But in order for me to get the same exact size policy, it would be a lot more a month. And it's just not necessary, right? It had all the bells and whistles, except for a couple of things, but not detrimental things. Not like, oh my God, the family's going to suffer because they don't have that. And so I just told the family that it was kind of irresponsible for me to tell them to get rid of it, right? And sometimes, believe it or not, sometimes people come to me wanting to get rid of them, and I have to talk them into keeping it. It's like I had another client down in Texas who I had to talk them into keeping it. I was like, no, and I had to show. Now, the good thing about that one, I could show them in numbers that their policy was actually paying for itself. But they didn't know that. They don't know how to read it, right? So,
yeah.
But that policy, and it wasn't that good of a policy, but it's paying for itself now. What do you even care?
Just let it do what it's gonna do.
The interest alone was paying more than the actual premiums. And I'm not talking about more than the cost of insurance. It was paying more than the premiums. That's how much the interest was growing in this thing.
Wow.
And I was like, and they were like adamant at first. I was like, no, I got them on a Zoom. I was like, no, I know that's what you believe, but let me show you. Showed them on 3 different pages, and they were like, oh, okay, that's what that means. Oh, okay. I said, yeah. I said, don't get me wrong. I would love to have your business, but this one you need to keep.
For sure.
And they appreciated that, and they referred me other business, and the wife did actually do some things with me later. But that's the funness of what I'm doing, because I get to strategize. Most people think I'm doing numbers a lot, or because I'm a financial strategist, and it's really a strategy. Tell me where you are, where we want to go. Let me try to get you there the easiest way we can, the least cost. That's really what, and thank God for the structure of my company. I can do that. I can shop around. I can find stuff. And then I know how to design them.
That's awesome. And I want to just point out a couple things that you share in terms of it kind of tie it into to the legacy. When you spoke about how oftentimes in our industry, people aren't educated enough themselves about the products that they're offering, right? Like they got the license, but that's just passing a test, right? Like anybody can. I'm not gonna say anybody can pass a test, but like if you can pass a test, you can get licensed in the industry. But knowing how to structure things, design products and plans for families, design programs, if you will, that's going to be in the best interest of the family is so important. And I wanted to share just a quick story. My brother-in-law, who, we spoke with him a few weeks ago, on his platform, his YouTube channel. Yeah, and he was sharing, he shared a video with me of another individual in the industry who was talking specifically about a particular type of product that we offer. And she was speaking about how by simply structuring it differently, one client, the client can pay the same amount of money, but get more value.
Yep.
And the only difference between where she started, where the client was paying like $20,000 and had like a $500,000 policy, and the client paying $20,000 a year and having a lesser face amount, but having more cash value, right, in the policy.
Right.
But the difference between where she started and where she finished was mainly the commission, right? So you can offer a policy where the client's putting in the same amount of money, but simply by structuring it differently, you get a higher or lower commission. And so if your focus is on the commission, you'll put the client in a policy where they won't get the most value out of it long term, but you'll get a higher commission versus putting it in maybe a lower face amount. They get more value from it based on what it is that they want to do with the policy. But your commission could be significantly lower. And so that's part of legacy in terms of like your character. Are you going to make a decision based on what's in the best interest for you, or what's going to be in the best interest for your client? So I brought up that because I want you to tie it into this question, right? How do other people use life insurance to leave a legacy?
Okay.
So can you speak a little bit about how that particular product or some products allow you to build wealth within the policy? And then also how you're able to transfer that to the next generation and some of the benefits of that as well.
Absolutely. Well, life insurance has some built-in tax benefits into it. And you can just kind of just use some common sense without us getting too technical and into the nuts and bolts of the state laws and stuff. But anytime life insurance is good for society. Anytime a family, a breadwinner or whoever leaves a legacy behind via life insurance, right? There's a tax break. It could be paid out income tax free because now the state doesn't have to, or the federal government doesn't have to take care of that family. So that's why they put some things like that in place. Also, it was really good how you talked about how you can take the same exact policy, right, and same amount of premium, but it depends on the commissions could be paid out differently, all by structuring. And I've not, I've been, well, first of all, it's not really me. I was trained very well early in my career by a young man by the name of Cleveland Eason. And Cleveland always taught me to never look at my commission. I look at my commission on Tuesday and Saturday when I get paid. I get paid every Tuesday. I get paid every Saturday through our systems, and that's when I look at. Actually, let me be honest. I don't even look at it. I think my wife looks at it, but I don't look at it either, which is bad. But it goes, it goes to business stuff, and then then we disperse what we use. But one of the things, how for example, one of the big ones that I'm noticing that's really catching on, and it's not new, but it's catching on. Cash value life insurance, such as variable universal life and index universal life. Rich people, wealthy people have been using stuff like that for decades to grow money, grow wealth inside of them, and they can grow tax deferred, but then also pass on to the next generation, income tax free. And that's those tax codes that's tied into life insurance, that if it's structured properly, it's done right, as long as it doesn't become a modified endowment contract where you put too much money in it. There's a lot of benefits to it, right? And now people have gotten really creative that now they're using the money while they're here. So they're not dying in leaving the money. They're using the money for other things. They're being their own bank, if you will. They're flipping property, opening exotic car businesses. I got hundreds of stories of this. But those are things you can do. Many people use them for college planning, college savings for their children. Many people use them for supplemental retirement income. But it can be accessed income tax free. And then if you find a policy that actually has some living benefits on top of that, then you can actually use parts of the death benefit while you're still alive. So there's many different types, and you got to structure them the right way. But like I was saying, Cleveland Eason taught me to look at what's important to the client in reference to. So some people, it's all about the cash, right? Mm-hmm. So we lower the death benefit to, as low as we can, if we can, and let's say they want to still put 20,000, right? So we lower it. So that means no excess money is going towards cost of insurance or fees. It's going strictly to cash value, right? But then it's other people who are more concerned about the death benefit, right? So then we structure that still kind of in the middle, though. You still don't, give them the maximum amount of coverage, and they're paying the 20,000 is like the minimum of that policy. That's just unhealthy for the policy in a whole, especially when the person gets in the older years. I try to structure a lot of the ones I do for my clients, of course, depending on where they are in their life, so that at some point they stop putting money into it and the policy's paying for itself. The policy's keeping itself alive. And spoke to a client not too far from us, about 3 hours up there near Petersburg. Spoke to her today, and some of them are at that place right now and they're retired. So it's like you're retired and your life insurance is paying for itself.
Sweet.
Pretty cool. And it's really cool. I did that stuff years ago. It's really cool to get a call, pull up my computer, look up your platform, and actually see what we put together is actually working. That's so enjoyable.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. And I love the fact that, and this is something that's, we understand that there's some tax advantages, of course, but the fact that you can actually utilize it while you're still living, right? Like I like to say, it's not your grandma's life insurance, but you can utilize it while you're still living. And even what you talked about in terms of living benefits, how that can allow you, if you get too sick or you have a chronic or critical illness or terminal illness, you can actually utilize up to the death benefit while you're still living. So it can help to, like you talked about earlier, it can still help to protect your wealth and and you're transferring that risk, right, from your wealth that's in your 401k or in savings or in investments. You protect all of that by having the right life insurance. And so speak to that a little bit as we wrap up here. I'm not going to keep you all too long today, but can you talk about how it's, as a wealth building tool, how it actually protects the assets? Because some people during their lifetime, you talked about, they might start businesses, invest in real estate, all of these different things. However, if you have a certain amount of assets when you pass away, you could very well end up having to pay a lot of what's left over to the government, right, in the form of estate tax. So how can you use life insurance to protect the wealth that you built long after you're gone in order so that it is passed on properly to the next generation?
Well, since life insurance is paid out in a normal basis, of course, there's some crazy situations out there, but in a normal basis, the death benefits are paid out income tax free. Think of life insurance as like a separate bank account to pay the taxes after you're gone. My wife, she's part of a Bible study group, and one of the young ladies was referred to me, and she came to me. I say young lady, but she's in her mid 60s or late 60s, and but her mom had passed, and her mom was very big in real estate. And I'm not talking about 2 or 3 houses here. She owned like a lot of real estate. It was multi-million-dollar properties and numerous of them. But the lady had no life insurance at all, and because the size of the estate. Through probate and things like that, some taxes were due, some money was due, and she had no life insurance. And the daughter, who ended up inheriting all of this, didn't have the cash to pay the number either. So what they end up doing, just picture this with me. They end up having to sell 2 pieces of property to pay the taxes on the property.
That's insane.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So you're paying taxes on a property you no longer even own. Because when really a life insurance, and no offense to guys in my industry, a lot of times they're more focused on brokerage accounts. So they're more focused on selling somebody a stock or something like that instead of structuring the entire plan. It's plenty of time to buy more stock. It's plenty of time to buy more ETFs and options and stuff like that. But let's structure it in a way that when the dust settles, right? So unfortunately, a lot of pretty wealthy people end up getting to really late years in their life. And then they're using a good portion. I'm going to use a guy, he's worth $35 million. He had to use $7 million of it just to buy a life insurance policy big enough to help with the estate, right? So you're worth $35 million. You had to use 7 of it for life insurance, when really, if you had just got that life insurance when you were younger, right, and just kept adding to it over the years, it wouldn't have cost $7 million.
Yeah.
And trust me, there's people out there. This is gonna sound really weird, and I want to cast vision to the listeners too. These numbers might sound significant. I want you to think about getting to the place where this number isn't significant to you. Right? There are people who are paying, listen to me, 7 figures a year for life insurance premiums. So I want you to think about that. Wouldn't you love to be at a place where one, you can afford to pay 7 figures, $1 million plus a year to life insurance premiums, and it doesn't change your lifestyle? And then how much are you actually leaving your family at that point? I think we don't talk. We talk about legacy, but we don't really talk about strategizing it and making it happen. And and even me, even though I do this, I don't think I'm as good as I should be at it either. Like I should have thought more about my nephews and nieces at this point. It's just what that's not required, but I love them. Right. And I'm sure my wife and I will, right. But I should have already really, I should already be thinking about Jefferson I just how Jaden and I just should just be thinking like that way.
Yeah.
Or I am thinking that way. I haven't strategized and pulled the trigger on it enough. Right. And of course, don't get me wrong, I'm not taking anything away from the responsibility of their own dadgum parents. Those are my brothers and sisters. Their own parents better be doing this stuff too. But
yeah,
to me, in my brain and in my heart, I have an obligation to me. And I even hate the word obligation, but I have an obligation as the oldest of my family, the oldest sibling. So I'm the oldest uncle to be thinking about that stuff. So that if anything falls short, Uncle John got it. Uncle John took care of it. I'm just not telling them about it so they don't get laxed. Yeah.
No, that's so important, and that's also part of the legacy, like what you're teaching and what you're sharing. And you said this earlier. You had you were able to help members of my family put certain things in place. And so when I'm working with clients and somebody's referred to me, I love how I can say that I have a wall of protection around my family, right? Like everybody in my immediate family has something, right? Like even the ones that ain't paying for it, they got something because it protects the family, right? Anything happens to any member of the family, it affects all of us. And so having that mindset of legacy, I was actually talking to my mother about this too. When you're talking about legacy and how part of your legacy is your intellectual capital, right? And the relationships between members of your family. So like between you and your nieces and nephew, and between, like my sister and her children and me, we building those relationships and those connections is also how you're able to maintain the wealth long term, right? We can leave the life insurance, we can leave the instructions, but we also need to leave the values, right? Like that needs to be taught and instilled into that next generation so they know how to come together and work together so that the wealth is maintained throughout the family, right? It's no good if I leave my children wealth and my sister's children don't have any wealth, because if they got a good relationship, her children gonna become the mine. And so hey, we're gonna make sure they have some too, and then y'all can bring your wealth together to be able to move forward and
building absolutely. It all together, for sure.
Absolutely. So, I love that you're definitely thinking about it. And I would encourage you, right? You're close to your family. Go ahead and like start to make those connections. Start to bring those build those relationships. I've been fortunate to live close to my family, for the last several years. And so we've been able to have those conversations. I've been able to introduce them to different things that I'm doing and have them have the opportunity to meet you and your family. But it's just constantly having those conversations. And I love how involved really my brother-in-law is with planning. Once we got him, cause and truth be told, he gives his wife credit, right? It wasn't even me. It was his wife he gave credit for helping him think of insurance differently. And she had the opportunity to work with us for a few years as well. But understanding that, like, he got his own business now, he's the owner operator as a truck driver. He just bought another truck cash.
So
yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah, so congratulations to him. And so like things it's great to see your family prospering, but also knowing that like they're well protected as they prosper. And that's something that's the mission of the firm that we work with is to not only help you build wealth, but protect it while you're building it. Right. I love the fact that I'm probably overinsured, like, but I'm protecting the wealth that I plan to build, right? Like as I'm building it, I want it all protected as I build it. So like you said, I don't have to wait till I'm worth 35 mil and cut a check for 7 mil to protect it all. I was protecting it all along the way. And it's doable, right? Like no matter where you are, you don't have to. I love this quote. I know I've heard you say this before. We may not have come from wealthy families, but wealthy families can come from us. And that opportunity is available to each and every person who has the desire and the willingness. And I want to quote, because I was actually listening to ET earlier today, and he was actually talking about wealth. And he said, wealth is your duty, right? And wealth is ruling over everything you can rule over. And he defined duty as a moral or legal obligation, a responsibility, a task or action that someone is required to perform. So it's our duty to leave wealth to our families. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Like, and why not, right? Like, why not you? He gave the example, his family, he's been doing all this work. He's becoming the number one motivational speaker of the world. He's been able to, he had a conversation with Les Brown, and Les Brown told him he was the best in the business. And he was like, so what the best charge, right? Right. And Les told him, right, like, this is what they charge, domestically and internationally. Right. And, he's been able to create a certain lifestyle for his family. And he had a conversation, I don't remember exactly who it was, with somebody, and they helped him understand that, like, all of what you have built would be for naught if you don't protect it, right? And he said he was able to go to the bank, and when a matter of long, he said less time than it takes to stand in line at Chipotle, he was able to sign some paperwork to make sure that wealth would be transferred to his family, and that responsibility, that duty, he even used obligation to his family is important. And so I know you shared this on here before, but speak to those who are out there, and I want this perspective to be heard, because too often the perspective is that children are supposed to take care of their parents. All right, like there's this expectation that children are supposed to take care of their parents. Yeah. And while I think that's noble, from what I've been reading and studying lately, it's the other way around. Yeah. And so can you children, speak to?
Yeah, my children are never supposed to be taking care of me. And I have a funny feeling Jesse would want to, if I became incapacitated and I couldn't just do for myself anymore. I think Jesse would step up but that's not how the world is supposed to work. I like the idea of taking care of my mother, but that's not. I mean, it's not scriptural. It's not. I mean, those are things. It's a privilege. I like it. Yeah. But that's not an obligation. That's not something I have to do. Right. Yeah. So we have to start scripturally. It actually, the Bible says that I'm supposed to be leaving an inheritance to my children's children, which means my children should never take care of me. Matter of fact, even I should be leaving to my great grandchildren. Think about that. Mm-hmm. Right? I don't even have any grandchildren. I'm supposed to be leaving to my great grandchildren. Right? So I think that's important, right? That we pay attention to that and build wealth based on that. Okay. Right? Can she take the beef burritos? Right. If you get the privilege, like, can she take the beef burritos? You get the privilege to take care of your parent, right? Without hindering that other part. Okay. Go ahead and do that. And then when it comes to life insurance, I know we're talking about life insurance. I think I'm qualified to tell you that you should have life insurance on your children too. I've lost 2 children myself. My wife and I celebrated 20 years married last Wednesday, so almost a week ago. And it was a great time, and got to hang out with her. One of my favorite pastimes is me hanging out with my wife and my daughters. So, that's the only gift I need in my life at this point, is just hanging out with them. But people still give us gifts and take good care of us, so we appreciate that too. But yeah, we celebrate 20 years, and in that 20 years, can you imagine, we've lost 2 children, right? But thank God we had the resources, we had the structure, we strategy, so that even if the worst happened, and come on, let's be honest, that's one of the worst things. Yeah. Your brain can come up with it happen. We still could mourn properly. We still could continue to walk in our calling. We still could, operate our household and do things and not have to think about what it cost, because it was strategized properly. And I noticed a lot of people don't think. I did this for a client today. Now, thank God this young lady was already thinking like this. But I believe you should have at least 2 times your salary. Let's say you make $50,000 a year. Make sure you got $100,000 in life insurance on your child, So that way, if you need 2 years to mourn, you got 2 years to mourn. You don't have to go back to work, rushing back to work. And I've seen situations where we had a friend of ours who lost his daughter, and he had to be back. Yeah, I mean, his company only gave him X number of days bereavement. He had already used up all his leave time because she was sick, and he had to go back to work. And unfortunately, not only did his daughter pass, 8 months after his daughter passed, he passed. And my wife and I believe he died of a broken heart. He never got a chance to mourn. He never got a chance to go through that properly. And there's so many different, I hate to get into counseling mode, but there's so many different phases of mourning. There's so many different phases of loss, and you have to go through all of them in order to be healthy. You have to go through the phase where you're mad. You have to go through the phase where you're sad. You got to go through the phase where you're angry, and you have to go through them. And and if you don't structure this stuff is in reference to financial stuff properly, a lot of times you never get to it. Right. And also good counseling. We've been blessed to find good counseling, good therapists and things like that. So,
no, that's important.
Hopefully that's where you wanted me to go with that. But
yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely value added to the conversation, of course. And I share that since I heard you say that. I've shared that with clients of mine, and I share that your story and that example, because I think about that too. Like nobody wants to think about death, right? Like life insurance is like, it's life insurance. So we're talking about your life and your legacy, right? We're not talking about death. But the idea that you have to do something to prepare for when you're gone. You have to do something for those that you leave behind, right? Life insurance is really not about you. It's about those who are left behind. Yeah. And so having the right plan and strategy in place can help your family to grieve and mourn properly, but also help them to continue to maintain their quality of life. Because you don't want your legacy to be that you didn't leave anything, right? Like that would be horrible.
You left bills. You left heartache. No.
Right. Yeah. And for the men out there, I'm talking to y'all right now. I'm gonna just take a minute, right?
Go ahead.
You don't want your lack of responsibility and obligation and duty to your family to result in your wife finding another man when you go. Because I promise you, things get tough enough. She'll do what she has to do to make sure that her family's taken care of. So protect your family, get as much protection as you can afford to ensure that your family can continue and maintain their lives.
As much as you can afford as fast as you can, because as we get older, as I'm sitting here, I'm in pain. I have some bodily injury type stuff, and it's not as easy to get it, the older you are, right? And sometimes we're so arrogant, and especially in the United States, we're so arrogant. We think bad things only happen to other people. And it's not a good place to be. It's not a good place to think like that. So plan ahead.
Yeah. I think this is normally around the time of year that I start hitting John up for some more insurance. It's been a few years, so I might need to go ahead and increase.
With you, I've always wondered what the heck is going on with August, September, October. Like,
yeah, it's just well, they say I guess September is Life Insurance Awareness Month for one, but also children are going back to school. You got time to actually think because they ain't running around the house all summer. So you start to think about certain things, and I feel like I'm healthier than I used to be. And my driving record's pretty clean now. I don't have any blemishes on my driving record. So yeah, this would be a good time to get some more. And speaking of which, like earlier, like maybe like a couple months ago, I was having like pain like in my back, and I didn't know what it was. I tried to get massages, like nothing was helping. I figured out what it was from. It was from pushing a stroller with my 2 children in it. Like that's
no way.
It was it. We were like, like going for a walk. Like I'm trying to exercise, and I put myself in more pain. And I went to the doctor. Stop.
Let me tell you.
I had gone to the doctor.
The real story. The real story.
Crazy.
I gone to the doctor, and she had gave me some pain medication. And like as she was prescribing it, and like told me to take it, and I'm like, this is going to affect my insurance because I'm going to have to explain to them why this stuff was prescribed. So I didn't want to take it. It did help to alleviate the pain temporarily, but now I know the cause, so no more pushing my niece, my nephew, my sister, my daughters, and like I can push one child in the stroller. It's a double stroller, but it was meant for when my children were a little smaller. But no more pushing.
It ain't meant for deterrent.
No more. I can put one of them in it, but when they both in it, and you're pushing, and the road is curved, and you're trying to
Wow. Cool stuff.
Yeah. So, anywho, we want to thank all of you who've been able to tune in, or for those who are watching this on a replay. Hey, share this with a friend, a family member. Hopefully, we made this conversation fun and a little light, but you also got some value and some education from it. Thank you, John, as always, for your insight, your wisdom, and your experience and knowledge. Just for sharing that with our audience.
No
and
problem.
For those who want to get in contact with John or myself, you can reach us at the links at the bottom and schedule a complimentary consultation to find out how you can properly protect the goose that lays the golden eggs, or you can protect your income so that your family can maintain their quality of life. So, any final words, John, as we wrap up?
Yeah, release all myths that you might have about life insurance and legacy. Start from scratch. Believe it or not, life insurance is always evolving, and it's very inexpensive. It's a lot more inexpensive than even I would think at this point. So don't hold yourself back. Your family's worth it, and so are you.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you all for tuning in. This has been Momentum Chat, our week 12 of our ABCs of Wealth series. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys next week.